Welcome back to Wyrd Wessex. My name's Andy.
And I'm Craig.
What are we talking about today, Craig?
Well, today we're delving into April Fool's Day, exploring its murky origins and some of its most famous pranks. So let's dive in. It's not just about silly pranks, it's rooted in the way information used to spread, or rather misspread. Back in the 1600s, hoaxes thrived. News, often handwritten or printed on flimsy broadsheets, was presented without much scrutiny. People decided what was true based on their own beliefs, what seemed plausible, or simply what they wanted to believe.
Yeah, I mean, just imagine a world where, sort of scientific facts weren't taken as they are, but were often just speculation, where whispers and rumours carried as much weight as published treatises and peer-reviewed evidence. And, we'll take Benjamin Franklin for instance. We've got in 1745 him reporting in his Pennsylvania Gazette about Chinese stones. Now, these were supposedly brought back by sailors from the Orient, which could cure everything from the dreaded hydrophobia, which is rabies, to the most malignant cancers. It sounds amazing, right? But a week later, a letter from an apothecary revealed that they were just useless, grime-covered deer antler. Now, this kind of misinformation was rampant back then, especially in those patent medical ads. These things were filled with outlandish claims of fantastical cures, like Dr. Goodenough's elixir of youth, or Mrs. Miggerson's magical hair tonic. All sorts of snake oil, which is a term still used today, until regulations finally caught up in the more sceptical, evidence-driven 20th century.
And it wasn't just accidental misinformation. Writers like Jonathan Swift used hoaxes as satire, pricking the pomposity of the powerful. Remember Gulliver's Travels, presented as a detailed travelogue, complete with maps and eyewitness accounts? It was brilliant fiction, a biting commentary on society. In 1708, Swift faked the death of a renowned astrologer, using the made-up name Isaac Bickerstaff. He published a mournful elegy and scathing pamphlet to discredit the man's outlandish predictions. Interestingly, this prank was timed around the vernal equinox, a period closely associated with the later traditions of April Fool's Day, which might have helped solidify the connection between the season and playful deception.
Edgar Allan Poe was another master of the hoax, a writer who revelled in the art of deception. As editor of the Southern Literary Messenger, he published the unparalleled adventure of one Hans Fall, a story about a Dutch balloonist who claimed to have journeyed to the moon in a hot air balloon. It was presented as a factual news account, complete with scientific jargon and detailed descriptions of the lunar landscape. Can you imagine the reaction? The public was utterly captivated, debating the plausibility of space travel and the existence of lunar civilizations. And it wasn't just lunar hoaxes that captured the public's imagination either. Tall tales of giants, monstrous creatures, and bizarre oddities, sounds weird, were also immensely popular, spreading through word of mouth and crudely printed pamphlets. In 1765, a sensational story about a 25-foot-long skeleton, purportedly unearthed in a French vineyard, swept across Britain and the American colonies. Now, that's interesting as well, because talking conspiracy theories, that the giants lived among us, historically one is coming back as well. So these things are cyclical. Eager for the extraordinary, people genuinely believe this monstrous relic, debating its biblical origins. It shows how easily people were swayed by sensational stories and the allure of the marvellous, especially before the age of reliable news sources and scientific scrutiny.
There's even evidence suggesting that Leonardo da Vinci engaged in April Fool's pranks. Apparently in the late 1400s, during the Florentine festival of the Annunciation, he designed an elaborate mechanical bird. It was crafted with intricate gears and adorned with shimmering hand-painted feathers. This bird, concealed within a giant, ornately decorated egg, was designed to burst forth during the festival's climax on April 1st. The whirring, metallic creature with mechanical squawks and puffs of theatrical smoke startled the crowd.
That's going in my D&D steampunk campaign, I think. It's a great idea.
So Da Vinci himself, observing from a hidden vantage point, was reportedly so pleased with the resulting chaos and confusion that it became an annual, albeit short-lived tradition in the city known as Il Volo del Uccello. I think that's how you say it. It means the flight of the bird, anyway.
So, before we delve further into the elaborate hoaxes of the 19th century, let's pause and examine the actual origins of April Fool's Day. And believe it or not, we find a clue in one of the most famous works of English literature. According to various sources, The earliest known literary association of April 1st with acts of trickery and playful deception appears to be within Geoffrey Chaucer's renowned work, The Canterbury Tales, specifically in The Nun's Priest's Tale. And get this, based on scholarly consensus, the tale dates back to approximately 1392.
So Chaucer might have given us the first written prank. That's pretty crazy, but many historians also point to the calendar. You know, the big switch from the Julian to the Gregorian in 1582? That's when things really got confusing. People were still celebrating New Year in late March or early April, and they became known as the original April Fools. It was especially chaotic in France, where the king just declared the new calendar by royal decree. We've talked a lot about the history of April Fool's Day, particularly in Europe and America, but this day of pranks and playful deception isn't confined to just a few countries. It's a truly global phenomenon, with each culture adding its own unique twist.
I mean, that's right, Craig. It's fascinating how different cultures interpret and celebrate this day. Take Scotland, for example. They don't just have one day of pranks, they have two. April Fool's Day is known as Hunting Gawk Day, with Hunting Gawk meaning hunt the cuckoo. Now, the first day is dedicated to your standard pranks, but the second day is called Tally Day, focuses on pranks of a more sort of posterior nature. Think like kick me signs, hug on your back, and other cheeky tricks like that.
And in France, where the Gregorian calendar played such a significant role in popularising April Fools, they call it Poisson d'Avril, or April Fish. The tradition there involves sticking paper fish on people's backs.
As you do. In Portugal, April Fool's Day is traditionally celebrated on the Sunday and Monday before Lent. The pranks there often involve throwing flour at people. It's a bit messier than paper fish, I guess.
And in some Spanish-speaking countries like Mexico, April Fool's Day is similar to our Day of the Innocents, which falls on December 28th. On this day, people play pranks, and it's considered acceptable to deceive others. It's also common to see media outlets publishing, shall we say, alternative news stories. That's a bad phrase to use again, right?
I mean, to me, yeah, I was going to say, it's you never know now. It's kind of, I mean, when I was growing up, even to a few years ago, I read papers more. I mean, a lot of us tend to just read news sites online now. But like, I remember papers tended to like publish an April Fool's story.
Yeah.
But but now you never know. You're like, okay, what's this? Yeah. It's a little bit harder to. Footage of aliens. Yeah, well, that could be a thing.
Yeah. But it's also a funny thing, right? It's probably a good place to say this, is whilst researching and looking up these pranks, you wonder whether these are genuine historical pranks or whether the articles themselves are the pranks.
Oh,
did this happen?
It's April Foolception, a prank. It's a prank within a prank.
I know, I'm reading this, like the whole like paper fish on a back in France. I'm like, is that real, or is France trying to trick the world into thinking that's a thing?
I do like a layer cake of pranks, you know, like the game Cards Against Humanity. You've got one of the box sets, there's a word. Like, you know, you've played Cards Against Humanity, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
So for anyone that doesn't know, it's someone has the picks a black card, and that's I don't know, for example, I didn't know the meaning of blank until I understood blank. And every other player's got a set of cards. You've got to pick the most offensive or funny ones that you know the person who dealt the black card will find the best. You hand them over, hidden, and they pick what they think's the winner. And one of these words, and I cannot remember for the life of it, it just didn't make sense. It was a word I'd never heard of. And so you look it up, and the first link is on, it's on this you know, the wiki page, the Urban Slang Dictionary. Sorry.
Yeah.
And you look it up, and that's the first thing that comes up. You click on it, and it says a Cards Against Humanity phrase that no one knows what it means. and they actually did that on purpose to make people look at it. I was like, I like that. That's good.
Yeah.
So yeah, even in India, there are regional variations. In some parts, like Maharashtra, April Fool's Day is celebrated with pranks and jokes, much like sort of Western countries. But in other regions, it might not be widely observed tradition at all.
And in many Asian countries, the adoption of April Fool's Day is a relatively recent phenomenon, often influenced by Western media. However, it's becoming increasingly popular, especially among younger generations, with pranks spreading like wildfire through social media. Which actually just occurred to me. That links to the whole assassination of King Umman's brother.
Yeah, so for anyone that doesn't know, so the younger brother of Kim Jong Un, the leader of North Korea, was Kim Jong Nam, and he was a bit of a outsider. He was very much sort of westernized in there in the North Korean leadership's eyes. So he had fled North Korea, and he was very much on their naughty list. Now he was in an airport. I can't remember which one, but he was accosted by two women who thought they were on a prank show. They'd been convinced they were in a prank show, and their job was to go and like spray people with this water bottle. And I'm guessing they'd like switched out the bottles. They'd timed it maybe. So, sort of one bottle emptied. They gave him another bottle and said, right now, him. And they went up to Kim Jong Nam and sprayed him with it. And it turns out this was a nerve agent. So they thought they were playing pranks on people. They'd been deceived themselves. So again, it's a big layer thing. But they used it to assassinate the younger brother of Kim Jong Un. So yeah,
Yeah,
pretty wild.
yeah, which is it's mad,
It's
but it kind of shows.
Kuala Lumpur actually was the airport it happened in.
And they were eventually released. Like they were locked up for months and went on trial. I think initially
It
one
was
of them was released, and then the other one they kind of followed suit in the end and said they could go as well.
Yeah, it was VX nerve agents, which is a real nasty thing. But yeah, so yeah, wild. And as you say, that sort of as it starts to move into that sort of, you can see how it's being used. Um,
Mm.
so yeah, the 19th century truly ushered in a golden age of hoaxes, with the scale and audacity of these deceptions reaching unprecedented heights. It was no longer simply about the casual dissemination of rumours. Hoaxes evolved into meticulously crafted spectacles designed to sort of captivate and deceive on a grand scale. Consider the proliferation of scientific societies during this era, each vying to share the latest groundbreaking research and discoveries to an eager public. With the burgeoning newspaper industry always hungry for sensational content, readily provided a platform for these extraordinary tales.
And among the most notorious examples of this era's elaborate hoaxes, there's the Great Moon Hoax of 1835. The Sun, a prominent New York newspaper, published a series of articles claiming that Sir John Herschel, a highly respected and genuinely existing astronomer, had made astonishing discoveries while observing the moon through a powerful new telescope. These discoveries included detailed descriptions of lush lunar landscapes and, most remarkably, the existence of various forms of life, including graceful winged human creatures dubbed Vespertilio Homo. People were utterly enthralled by these accounts, devouring every word because, in the context of the time, the claim seemed tantalizingly plausible. Herschel was indeed a real figure. The scientific journal referenced in the articles was a legitimate publication, and the prevailing belief in the possibility of extraterrestrial life made the narrative all the more believable.
And even when the sort of audacious hoax was eventually exposed as a fabrication, the Sun, demonstrating a remarkable commitment to their narrative, never retracted the story. Sounds like the Sun. Anyway, they went so far as to publish supplementary pamphlets, further elaborating on the supposed lunar discoveries, thus deepening the public's fascination. Then, in 1869, the sensational discovery of the Cardiff Giant captured the nation's attention. This purported petrified man, unearthed on a farm in Cardiff, New York, was not the other Cardiff, was claimed to be a colossal figure standing nearly 10 feet tall. In reality, it was a skillfully crafted stone carving, the work of a man named George Hull, and it became a focal point in the heated debate between proponents of biblical literalism and the emerging theories of Darwinian evolution. And also, if anyone remembers that Simpsons episode with the angel, kind of probably an inspiration for that as well.
In 1874, the New York Herald published a sensationalized story detailing the supposed escape of numerous wild animals from the Central Park Zoo. Sounds like Madagascar. They claimed that these creatures had wreaked havoc throughout the city, resulting in dozens of fatalities. The public, consumed by terror, reacted with widespread panic, with armed citizens taken to the streets, determined to defend themselves against the imagined menagerie. It was only in the concluding paragraphs of the article that the Herald revealed the story to be a fabrication.
Imagined Menagerie is my new band name. So, having explored the historical roots of April Fool's Day and the grand, elaborate hoaxes of the 19th century, we now turn our attention to more recent times. The tradition of elaborate pranks and hoaxes has not faded, rather, it has adapted and evolved, finding new avenues for expression in the modern age.
First up, in 1957, the BBC's renowned Panorama programme broadcast a now legendary segment about the supposed Swiss spaghetti harvest. They presented utterly convincing footage of Swiss farmers carefully plucking strands of spaghetti from trees, claiming it was an exceptionally bountiful crop. They showed close-up shots of the spaghetti hanging from the trees and the farmers carefully placing it into baskets. The public, perhaps surprisingly, readily accepted the narrative, with numerous viewers calling the BBC eager to learn how they could cultivate their own spaghetti trees.
Which is ridiculous, really, because everyone knows spaghetti grows sort of from the ground up in strands, like sort of a wheat field. In 1996, Taco Bell, in a calculated move that blurred the lines between marketing and mischief, announced they had purportedly purchased the iconic Liberty Bell and, as part of the deal, renamed it the Taco Liberty Bell. The public reaction was immediate and overwhelmingly negative, with widespread expressions of outrage and disbelief. It was brilliant, if controversial, bit of marketing.
Speaking of public outrage and carefully crafted deceptions, in 1998, Burger King executed a particularly clever prank by running a full-page advertisement in USA Today announcing the introduction of a left-handed Whopper.
Ooh.
The advertisement meticulously detailed how the condiments within the burger were rotated 180 degrees, catering specifically to the anatomical needs of left-handed individuals. It showed diagrams of the rotated condiments and even explained how the packaging was reversed. Thousands of people, seemingly convinced by the detailed explanation, flooded Burger King locations with requests for the special burger.
That's brilliant. I like that. Let's not overlook, though, the impact of the internet era on the evolution of hoaxes. Massively so. In 2002, NPR broadcast a segment in which they claimed that former President Richard Nixon was making a political comeback, complete with a lost speech that was supposedly recently discovered. In reality, the speech was delivered by an actor impersonating Nixon, but the convincing performance and the carefully constructed narrative managed to fool a significant portion of the listening audience. Then there are the tech giants who have embraced the tradition of April Fool's Day with enthusiasm. In 2009, YouTube, in a move that caused widespread panic amongst its user base, claimed that all the videos on the site were going to be permanently removed. Only the single best video would be allowed to remain, creating a sense of urgency and competition.
And Google in particular has a long and storied history of crafting elaborate April Fool's Day pranks, often pushing the boundaries of technological possibility. Take, for instance, Google Nose in 2013, which claimed to offer a revolutionary olfactory search engine, allowing users to search for and experience smells through their computers. They even claimed that you could search for smells like wet dog or fresh cut grass, and that the smell would come directly from the computer.
I remember that. I actually remember that one.
I don't know.
Oh, I was terminally online even back then.
Sniffing your computer days. Oh yeah, I'm getting something.
Being me, it was probably just a load of weed dropped in the keyboard. I didn't say that. Or consider Google Maps Pac-Man, also launched in 2013, which transformed real-world street maps into playable Pac-Man levels. That is phenomenal. By the way, I didn't actually play that. I missed that one when it happened. This enabled users to navigate familiar locations while pursued by the iconic ghosts.
I've got it stuck in my head about smells now, and I'm like, that was your realization that was actually a hoax. I've been believed that for years.
Yeah, that's it. It's like, yeah, it just meant my computer had all the weird smells attached to it already. You know. Spilt coffee, some herbs, sort of sweaty palms. Yeah, herbs.
Herbs. All right. So we've seen how April Fool's Day and elaborate hoaxes play with our expectations and our sense of reality, but this human fascination with trickery isn't just a modern phenomena. It runs deep all the way back to the earliest myths and legends. And speaking of legends, perhaps it's time to explore some of my favorite tricksters from around the world. Those figures who embody the very essence of playful deception and, as we'll find, the very nature of weird itself. So, Andy, let's start by delving into a figure from Polynesian mythology, one who embodies the very essence of audacious trickery, Maui.
He's the you're welcome guy, yeah? He's yeah. So the demigod, the Rock.
Yes, portrayed by The
That's-
Rock in more
yeah,
recently.
yeah. I was gonna say, I'm just thinking of the say, but you're welcome. But you know, it's actually
It's a
an
great
entire
film.
religion. But yeah, it's a great film as well, and
It's
I think a lot of people, yeah.
it puts a timestamp on this, but Moana 2 came out on Disney this week.
I have not watched it yet.
Um,
Is it good?
I saw it at the cinema with Ocean for her birthday in December.
Uh,
I like it's fun. I like it, but I do prefer the first one over the two.
A lot of people
Uh,
said that.
yeah.
He's in reality, yes, he's sort of been popularized by that, but he's a demigod whose exploits are as grand as they are mischievous. He's not just a prankster, he's a cultural hero, a figure who reshaped the very world around him.
Yeah, so just a quick apology up front on this next bit. Hopefully we get all the pronunciations correct, but doing our best, guys. Yeah, so Maui's stories are woven into the fabric of Polynesian culture, stretching from Hawaii to Aotearoa, the Maori name for New Zealand. He's known for his incredible feats, often achieved through sheer cunning and a healthy dose of magical trickery. According to the legends, Maui was born prematurely, cast into the sea by his mother Hina, yet he was rescued by his supernatural ancestors who nurtured him into a powerful demigod.
And powerful he was. One of his most famous exploits involves slowing down the sun. The days were too short, hindering the people's ability to complete their tasks. So Maui, using a rope woven from his sister's hair, trapped the sun's rays and beat it in submission, forcing it to travel more slowly across the sky. And his fishing adventures are equally remarkable. In some versions of the legend, he used magical fishhook and ancestral jawbone to pull up entire islands from the depths of the ocean. In Aotearoa, for instance, the North Island is said to be Maui's great catch. These tales aren't just fanciful stories, they reflect the Polynesian connection to the sea, their reliance on its bounty, and their understanding of the land's very formation.
But Maui's trickery wasn't always benevolent. He was also known for his insatiable curiosity. See, I can't even talk English, guys. I mean,
It's all right, man. It's all right. We'll get you picture cues for the next one.
Yeah. So Maui's trickery wasn't always benevolent. He was also known for his insatiable curiosity and his desire to challenge the boundaries of mortality. One of his most daring and ultimately tragic endeavors was his attempt to steal immortality from Hinutipo, the goddess of death. He tried to enter her body through her vagina while she slept, hoping to emerge from her mouth, thus reversing the cycle of life and death. A rather bold plan, to say the least. However, a small bird, the Puwakawaka, laughed at the sight, waking the goddess, and she crushed Maui between her thighs, bringing death into the world. It's a stark reminder that even the most powerful tricksters cannot escape the ultimate fate.
And yet, Maui's legacy endures. He's a symbol of human ingenuity, of our desire to push the limits of what's possible. His stories are cautionary tales, but they also celebrate the power of wit and the courage to challenge the unknown. He's a perfect example of the trickster archetype, a figure who embodies both creation and destruction, order and chaos.
So, of course, no discussion of tricksters would be complete without mentioning the master of chaos himself, Loki, from Norse mythology. A figure of immense complexity, a shapeshifter, a firebringer, and a constant source of both amusement and dread to the gods of Asgard. He's a character that embodies the unpredictable, the weird in its most potent form.
Indeed, Loki's origins are shrouded in mystery. He's not fully Aesir, the principal gods of Asgard. His father was a giant, his mother was a god. or a goddess. We don't know. Some people think he's a giant. Some people don't see the Jotun, the giants of Norse mythology, as actual literal giants, but something different. It's hard to know. Maybe something in between, maybe something else entirely. It's quite shrouded. This liminal status, though, this in-betweenness, is central to his character. He's a bit different from everyone else. He exists on the fringes, challenging the stabilized order. This is especially interesting at the moment because in my day job, when I'm working with schools teaching sort of Viking history, among other things, at this point in the year, as of recording this, a lot of schools are doing Vikings. And so if we have time at the end, I tend to tell Viking stories. And I'm first of all, it's the first time, well, properly I've really thought about like the nature of Loki and what he is, sort of looking into this and reading into this. So I kind of want to bring that into my stories about him a little bit more. But I do want to say that out of all the gods and goddesses, like you'd think Thor, Odin, they'd be the big sort of popular ones. But the kids who have been studying it a bit that come to us, they are way more into Loki than like anyone else. So he's definitely increasing in popularity.
I'm sure that's got partly to do with Marvel. I mean, whenever I mention like Thor to kids, they always mention Marvel. So it's like
I think Marvel's helped, but I think people love a trickster, you know? I think a lot, but no, Marvel has definitely helped, you know? But that's, I don't know how many kids watch the Loki series, which I quite enjoyed, but, you know, and because he hasn't been in any Marvel films for a while, I think that's starting to fall away a little bit.
yeah,
Like
maybe.
yeah, but we'll see, you know, see if he's popular in a few more years. But I think he's got some really cool stories. I think what it is as well, a lot of the people writing the newer sort of storybooks about the Norse gods, I think they have quite a heavy focus on the Loki stories and Loki's mischievous nature and his cheekiness and things like that. And I think kids really like that. So
Yeah. I mean, most of the stories involve Loki in some way, breaking something, fixing something, you know, even like.
that's it. And interesting enough, though, a lot of them now know that he wasn't Thor's brother. Like, give it like, 8 years ago, 7 years ago, they all were like, oh, he's Thor's brother. And now they know he wasn't. You know, he's closer to Thor's uncle. He was Odin's blood brother.
Yeah. So his shapeshifting abilities are legendary. He can transform into animals, both male and female, and even inanimate objects. This fluidity, this refusal to be confined to a single form reflects his chaotic nature. He's a force of change, a catalyst for disruption. And he's not just a harmless prankster. Loki's actions often have serious consequences. He's responsible for the death of Balder, the beloved son of Odin, a pivotal event that sets in motion the events of Ragnarok.
And I think that nature of him as well is actually quite well portrayed. There's a Scandinavian TV series, Ragnarok. I don't know if you've seen it.
No, I haven't, no.
It's really good. It's sort of like the main character is like the rebirth Thor, and all these events are happening in town between sort of people who are also Jotuns and people that are also Aesir. And his younger sort of adopted brother in this, or like half brother, is Loki, and they have that. And I won't give too much away, but that nature of Loki and the in between is portrayed really well. Yeah. But Loki also plays a crucial role in many myths. He often uses cunning to help the gods out of difficult situations, admittedly some that he got them into in the first place. But one of the most famous ones is where he helps Thor retrieve his stolen hammer Mjolnir by disguising himself as a bridesmaid and dressing Thor up as Freya, who the giant that stole the hammer demands their hand in marriage. So they go and play this trick sort of led by Loki. Loki gets them out of the difficult situations with some cunning words, and they retrieve the hammer. He's a figure, sort of a paradox, much like Maui in that sense, sort of having that duality of order and chaos.
I just went to grab something from the toilet, which sounds bad. Just going to show this off. So this, I don't know how well it's going. Can you see this?
Oh, yeah, move back a bit. Oh, there you go. Nice.
There's the giant, and there's Thor in his wedding dress at the wedding feast. Which was these bottles. Thrym's mead was a mead that I made for my sister-in-law and brother-in-law for their wedding. I made them a big batch of mead as a wedding present. And my friend John Norton did the artwork.
That's
Very good.
cool.
Yeah. Um, yeah, he's a master of words, of lies and half truths. He can twist language to his advantage, sowing discord and confusion. And of course, his punishment is as dramatic as his deeds. Bound to a rock with the entrails of his own son, with venom dripping onto his face, he endures unimaginable torment.
Harsh.
Hmm. And speaking of tricksters who embody the darker aspects of the weird, we must turn our attention to a figure deeply ingrained in English folklore, the devil himself.
The devil in our own backyard.
Precisely. While not always a trickster in the traditional sense, the devil in English folklore often engages in cunning bargains, deceptive appearances, and outright acts of mischief. He's a master of temptation, promising worldly pleasures in exchange for souls.
And he's not just a figure of fear, is he? He's often portrayed as almost like comically inept.
Yeah, I mean, in many folk tales, the devil is outsmarted by clever humans. Take, for example, the legend of the Jack-o'-lantern. Stingy Jack, a notorious trickster himself, repeatedly outwits the devil, even trapping him inside a tree. As a result, Jack is denied entry to both heaven and hell, and is condemned to wander the earth with only a burning coal inside a carved turnip to light his way.
Or what about the stories of the Devil's Bridge? There are many of these across England where the devil is tricked into building a bridge, often with the agreement that he'll take the soul of the first creature to cross it, but then a clever villager sends a dog or a cat or something across, outsmarting the devil, and that outsmarting the devil is quite a recurring theme as well, isn't it?
I actually thought you were going to say that's my new band name, but all right.
It's not as good as the last one.
So yeah, there's the tale of the devil and the cobbler. The devil, disguised as a gentleman, commissions a pair of shoes from a cobbler, promising great wealth, but the cobbler, suspicious of the devil's true nature, stitches a hidden cross into the shoes, causing the devil to vanish in a puff of smoke.
And his appearances are often tied to specific places, aren't they? Old churches, lonely crossroads, ancient stone circles, places where the veil between worlds is said to be thin and it's maybe hard to explain how it got there.
Absolutely. And the devil's presence is often associated with liminal spaces, those in-between places where the natural and supernatural collide. He's a creature of the shadows, thriving in the ambiguity and uncertainty of the weird.
Yeah, and just like Loki, his actions often have unintended consequences, don't they? He might try and sow chaos, but he often ends up creating something new, something unexpected.
So the next trickster I want to talk about is Anansi the Spider. He's a staple of West African and Caribbean folklore.
Ah, Nancy, the true master of cunning. He's not just a trickster, but also a storyteller. Can relate. A symbol of wit and resilience. Anansi originates from the Akan people of Ghana, and his tales spread through the Caribbean during the transatlantic slave trade. He's often depicted as a spider, but he can also take human form. What's fascinating about Anansi is how he uses his small size and cleverness to outsmart much larger and more powerful opponents. He embodies the idea that wit can triumph over the brute strength. Anansi's stories are full of lessons. He often teaches us about the consequences of greed and dishonesty, but he also celebrates the ability to overcome adversity through ingenuity. One very famous example of his cunning is how he gained all of the stories from a sky god, Niame. He did this by capturing a leopard, a fairy, and hornets and bringing them to Niame. He's a complex figure. He can be mischievous and selfish, but he's also a cultural hero, a symbol of survival and adaptability. In the Caribbean especially, Anansi became a symbol of resistance for enslaved Africans.
It's important to note that Anansi isn't just a figure of the past. His stories continue to be told and retold, adapted to new contexts and audiences. He's a timeless example of the trickster archetype and the power of storytelling itself.
Yeah, he really is. And like Loki and Maui, he shows us how the trickster can be both a force of chaos and a bringer of cultural knowledge as well. So that about brings us to the conclusion of this special April Fool's Day episode. Shall we do some weird news?
Well, Andy, before we delve into weird news, it's time to reveal the biggest hoax of this entire episode, which was, in fact, that one of the stories that I recounted was a hoax itself.
Oh,
So one of the hoaxes in this script was actually fabricated. And I wanted to see whether, I mean, the listeners can do this at the same time. Which story do you think was a hoax? So take a moment, think back. We had some weird stories, spaghetti trees in Switzerland, left-handed whoppers.
Okay, okay. Um, I think so. As you probably guessed, Craig wrote this script, and he's played a prank on me. Was it the Da Vinci one? Um,
I'll be honest, I didn't write the hoax. I did ask Bard to write me a hoax to include in the story.
oh, that's even worse. I'm getting pranked within
You're
like
getting
by
pranked by
AI. I mean,
AI.
let's face it, we all probably get pranked by AI, don't we? Um,
So I thought I just sort of fed the script in and I said, and I want to insert another story into this that's believable. And we're going to prank Andy. And so this
I
is
I think it was the Da Vinci one.
it was the Da Vinci story.
Yes. All right, cool. All right, good. I got pranked,
Uh,
but I spotted the prank on second.
I
Yeah.
was a bit worried when I first read it that you'd go, that isn't true. I know everything there is to know about Da Vinci.
Thing is, there is so much. I still guessed it might not be true, but there's so much bullshit about Da Vinci and
Yeah.
other inventors. I just thought it was a story attached to him and not necessarily true. I thought it was folklore, you know. But I was
Yeah.
like, I could buy that. I could buy that.
And
But
my butchering of the Italian, the flight of the bird. It's
yeah,
perfectly believable.
there you go. There you go. Yeah. So, and I was like,
Oh.
will it be one that he's made me read, or will it be one that he's put himself down for? Because if I read it, I might go, hang on, a bit more than if he's reading it. And so I went with that one as well. Yeah, so okay. I've been pranked by Bard.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, as I say, it's a really difficult thing, right? You're researching pranks, but then are the pranks themselves? Like, did these things really happen? It kind of that ambiguity again, right? I mean,
Well, maybe when the apocalypse happens as is predicted, and culture and society tries to rebuild with the scraps of information that are left, and they don't stumble across much, but they do stumble across Wyrd Wessex for some reason, and they use us
God,
as a form of
imagine getting all your information from Wyrd Wessex.
they use us as like the basis for like recounting like oral histories. Maybe that will become part of folklore now. Maybe that will be our contribution to it.
Indeed.
Um, oh God. Um, So yeah, so yeah, I don't know if there's anything you wanted to chat about April Fools first, sort of like before we get into weird news, apart from the fact that I got had by Google Bard. Um, or yeah,
No, I think as we've gone, we've discussed a lot of the aspects of it, right? I mean, the only thing I didn't include, I guess, is the idea, particularly, I don't know if it's around the world, but in England, like you're only supposed to prank till lunchtime. If you prank after lunchtime, you're the fool rather than
exactly. So for anyone listening to this after lunchtime on April Fool's Day, Craig is the fool, not me.
considering we're recording this like a month in advance.
You're spoiling the magic. But yeah, I don't know if that holds the whole year, like the whole world round where they do April Fool's things. I don't know whether you can do the flight of the bird before or after. You
Hmm.
know, but yeah, it would be interesting. And also, these things have evolved, haven't they? So it'd be interesting to see what April Fool's Day is in, 50, 100, 200 years' time, whether it's still a thing, whether it's gone out of fashion, whether it's something completely different.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I'm that into the idea of April Fool's Day, really. I think
That's
it's a
because you're
bit
getting
annoying.
old. That's because you're getting old, man. It just seems mean and cruel. I mean, you see some of these things on YouTube, like these pranks, and they're not necessarily April Fool's pranks, but you got these ESA things, emergency, sort of service announcement sort of thing, which is the big, meh, meh, sort of on the screen
Yeah,
where it's like nuclear attack imminent sort of thing. And people have like pranked their elderly parents and grandparents with it. I thought that's fucking harsh. These people like grew up with the Cold War.
yeah,
You can't do that to them. You cannot do that to them. Yeah, it's you see people in there sat in their chairs like sobbing. You say, "Oh my
yeah.
God. A, why would you do that? B, why would you then upload that onto YouTube?" But yeah, I guess I'd prefer April Fool's pranks to be a little more mischievous and a little less like harsh, like kind
Yeah.
of no one gets hurt, no one gets upset. That would be my preference for it.
Less Lokified, less bringing on Ragnarok.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. I mean, some of them, but then they spiral with Loki, don't they? Oh,
Yeah.
I mean, cutting someone's hair off is probably never a nice thing to do as a prank, but like, the spiraling. But then, in that story, by him cutting off Sif's hair, her beautiful golden hair, and having to make it up for her by getting new golden hair forged for her, he also gets like loads of cool stuff for the gods. Odin
Yeah, he
gets
always comes out on top, doesn't he?
yeah, Odin gets his like he gets Gungnir, sort of Thor gets Mjolnir.
Yeah.
All the gods get different bits and pieces. Or like the walls of Asgard being raised by one of Loki's tricks. He's the one that insisted, well, we get the giant to, sort of build the wall. And we say we'll only pay him if he completes it in a year, and he won't do it. And then he does it due to this magical horse, and Loki ends up turning himself into a female horse to lure that one off. And not only do they get a wall and not have to pay for it, but they also get they'll build a wall and the giants pay for it. But they also get that Odin gets slept near. Like it all really turns up for the gods due to Loki's tricks, and they're all still there ragging on him.
He lands on his feet no matter what happens.
Or not even he does. Like after the story with Sif's hair, like he gets his mouth sewn shut, and all the gods are
Yeah.
laughing at him. And it's like you've all got this cool shit. It's one of our listeners actually, Aira, very much into Loki, especially. So hi if you're listening. Very much into the Norse gods, and we talk about this quite a lot. How Loki, like you can kind of see towards the end of the stories, he turned into a complete dick. But like you can see what turned him that way. If you follow it like in a linear
Yeah.
pattern, like you can see what turned him that way.
Mm.
But yeah, this is probably stuff for another episode or after Weird or something. So should we do some
This
weird
has got
news?
very after weird, hasn't it?
There you go. There's a taste of what we rant and chat about on After Weird if you're not signed up. Should we do some weird news though?
Gonna.
Have you got one?
Yeah.
Good. I do. Do
Good.
you want to do yours first or shall I?
No, go on. I got one from space.com.
Okay, cool. I've got one that's kind of pertinent in some ways to what we've been speaking about today.
All right. Well, mine is something that's been kind of, I think, a mystery for quite a long time now. So astronomers have cracked the case of the mysterious deep space radio signal that repeats every 2 hours.
Oh, go on.
Are
Is
you
it
aware of
aliens?
that one?
I'm aware of it. Is it aliens?
Yeah.
What's the
No. So actually, it
is it
says it was
aliens
a
though?
mystery that was uncovered last year. So the team tracked the signal back to a strange binary system containing a dead star, a white dwarf, and a red dwarf stellar companion.
Ba, 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 ba. Sorry, go
We're going to get sued if you do that.
on. Yeah, well, a few seconds. You're allowed a few seconds.
I meant because of how bad you did it.
Ah,
So the radio pulse repeats every 2 hours and was first detected a decade ago, coming from the direction of the Big Dipper. This new research indicates that the cause of this repeating radio signal is the magnetic field of the white dwarf and its red dwarf stellar companion slamming together in a tight binary. So this,
Light Binary is a good name.
yeah. There are several highly magnetized neutron stars or magnetars that are known to exhibit radio pulses with a period of a few seconds, team member and Northwestern astrophysicist Charles Kilpatrick said in a statement. Some astrophysicists also have argued that sources might emit pulses at regular time intervals because they are spinning, so we only see the radio emission when the source is rotated towards us. It says we know at least some long period radio transients come from binaries. We hope this motivates radio astronomers to localize new classes of sources that might arise from neutron stars or magnetar binaries. I mean, the article continues on, but that's the gist of it. We were hoping for aliens, as Andy said. It's not aliens.
Is one day. Is that the one that they thought was a Dyson sphere initially? Well, they didn't think, but it was suggested it might be a Dyson sphere. Or was that another one?
Doesn't mention it in the article.
You know what a Dyson sphere is, or
Yes, but for the listeners, Andy.
okay, so Craig's going to explain. No. Dyson Sphere is a structure, like a mega structure built around a star. It's been proposed. It's been a lot of sci-fi stuff. I don't know if Arthur C. Clarke did it, but a few other people have talked about it. The idea is civilization gets to a certain level and they could build a mega structure encircling a star. So it'd still allow heat out from the star, the sun, to warm the planet, the origin planet, or it's just done somewhere else. But this mega structure rotates around a sun and basically harnesses the energy like infinite power, essentially, like the world's biggest nuclear reactor or the galaxy's biggest
Yeah.
nuclear reactor, I guess. And like the idea was because it's regular intervals, like, it's not erratic or anything like that, it's regular intervals. It could be like those are the timings of the rotations, like the gaps. So we're getting those radio signals or those blasts like in between it.
Yeah.
So it would link something that might be, made by intelligent design. Which I was like, ho, ho, ho. Like in my heart, I knew it wasn't going to be, but I was like, wow, but also kind of terrifying. Because then you get the whole what they talk about in the three-body problem with the, sort of dark forest theory. Where, sort
Yeah.
of an alien civilization that advanced, you don't want them knowing about you.
So, Andy, have you seen that there's a Netflix series, The Signal?
I haven't. I've seen there is a Netflix series called The Signal. I haven't watched it.
I watched it last year. I think it's German language. It's a subtitled thing. But it's a spacey thing, and from the title, The Signal, I think you can gather that it's kind of
Yeah.
related to what we're saying here. And there's kind of this idea about a possible alien landing, but it's a really good show. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to spoil the ending, but I would recommend people watch it.
Nice. I after you mentioned on an After Weird, the fourth kind, I rewatched that. I thought I'd seen it before. I hadn't. It was something else on a similar premise, and it was really good and another alien-y thing. But yeah, I'll do my weird news.
Go on. Then.
So as I said, kind of tied in. So this is from odditycentral.com. Um, People are buying bank soil as part of bizarre get-rich-quick trend. Chinese people desperate to get rich by any means necessary are putting their faith in bags of bank soil sold online as wealth bringing talismans. Bank robberies usually involve cold hard cash or gold ingots, but several Chinese banks have recently become the target of an unusual type of theft, that of soil from potted plants or from around the buildings housing them. Several online shops in the Asian country are selling small bags of bank soil as get rich quick talismans that can cost as much as 888 yen, which is about 120 dollars.
Mm.
So about sort of 80 quid. And demand for the unusual product is steadily increasing, sorry. Some sellers boast a 999.999% success rate in generating wealth, while others record the harvesting process to guarantee the authenticity of their bank soil. One website claimed that the four types of bank soil, if it sold, were collected from five major banks: Bank of China, Industrial and Commercial Bank of China, Agricultural Bank of China, China Constructive Bank, and Bank of Communications, and was believed to have the power to increase one's wealth. The soil is manually collected from the five major banks, is believed to enhance wealth and dissolve bad energy. Though we cannot scientifically prove this, a sales representative told South China Morning Post. Bank soil is collected at night from the green belts in front of these banks, not just one specific financial outlet. The trend has been ridiculed on Chinese social media, but the simple fact that so many sites are selling bank soil is proof there is a big enough market for it. One anonymous buyer told Red Star News that they are a business owner and hope the talisman would make it more profitable, adding that they have several friends who had bought some. Clips of people digging up dirt from green spaces outside various banks and then packing them in small bags have been circulating online for months, but they apparently risk nothing more than being accused of damaging public property. So yeah, kind of going back to that whole like cure-alls slash lucky
Mm.
charms kind of thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
so yeah, I like that sort of. Well, this soil is from a bank, a place of wealth, so this will give me money. So yeah, I just thought that was fairly fitting for what we're talking about today.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Right. So that brings us to an end then. So, um, thank you very much for listening. We hope you've enjoyed the episode. Um, we are going to have a bit of a chat, aren't we? After this for our After Weird, so paid Substack listeners can tune into that and hear our random thoughts.
And we'll carry on talking about today's episode, but we also chuck in some extra weird news and what other bits we want to talk about, right? So,
Yeah.
I've got a
So,
story today to tell you about a 3-year-old boy who remembers being murdered in his last life.
I've got something for you as well that happened recently.
And I've got a
So
little update on because the last episode we did on the Red Barn murder, the bonus episode, there's a little detail I missed out about William Corder that was really interesting. I don't know how I missed it first, but we'll do that as a little update as well.
nice. So yeah, for that and more, come and join us on Substack where you can get early release on episodes, bonus episodes, all this after weird stuff, and yeah,
Yeah.
pretty fair amount of content for a fairly reasonable price, I reckon. Anything to add?
Yeah, you can find it at www.wyrdwessex.co.uk. It is most of the content still free on there, so we're hosting a lot of the videos of the episodes if you want to watch along. But there's also blog posts as well, so there's a lot you can kind of delve into. And if you want to give us, I think it's £3.50 a month at the moment. As Andy said, you get the back catalogue of bonus episodes, which is stacking up quite a bit at the minute.
Yeah, I guess that's about it, really. So thanks again for listening, and until next time, stay weird.
So yeah, Andy, this 3-year-old boy that remembers being murdered in his last life apparently correctly pointed to where his body was buried.